Good morning. I'm John Hoyt and want to talk to you again and continue this series on foundations and fundamentals of security, some of the pillars of security that you can take and use in the office, at home, share it with anyone. It could be practical and tactical advice that you can use wherever. Today, just continuing the thread on some of the things that we can do that can make a difference. And it's usually kind of the basics, it's the fundamentals, but it's not always the glamorous. The glamorous things are great, the shiny objects, the new toys, the new security tools and software and hardware that you can buy that helps make you quote unquote secure. But what I found is these solid fundamentals are really what make the difference. It's what makes you less of a target. It's what makes you makes the bad guys move on to somebody else because they don't find easy methods or ways to attack you and your environment. So today I want to talk about misconfigurations. And what I've found is that behind patching and not having patches, that misconfigured systems are really, it's right up there with vulnerable systems, but it's pretty close to the ways that systems get compromised or can be compromised. And I've seen many times where an environment or a server or a system had been configured one way for testing or for just a one-off scenario that they forgot to maybe turn the firewall on. That's a good example, where they were testing the firewall. And what do they do when people test the firewall? Well, they turn the firewall off, and they turn it off so they can make sure that things can talk, systems can talk to each other. And unfortunately, sometimes they forget to turn the firewall back on, or a rule that they forgot to turn back on. And I've seen that many times. And I've seen systems that were just set up terrible from the get-go because the people that were configuring it, maybe it was a vendor, they didn't care about the security of your environment as much as they cared about getting the application running. I've heard vendors offer to have, an account on the system so they can get in anytime they want to make it more convenient, right? And convenience and security are always at odds, and there's always a balance of what's convenient and what's secure. You can't have completely secure system. Well, you can, but you have zero convenience, zero flexibility, zero functionality, right? So you got to have a balance there. But to a business person or business owner, they want the system to work. They want it to be able to function, and they want to have help as quickly as possible when something bad happens, right? So I get it. I've been there. But just sometimes trusting what the vendor says, because they're the vendor, they aren't caring about your security as much as you will. They care about providing that service as well. So I've been on those calls and be like, look, no, we will get you in the system when you need to be in the system. We're not going to give you, all access all the time. It's just not going to happen, as long as I can have a say in it. But that's another scenario. I've seen scenarios where users were testing things and they just wanted to be able to test access to something, to a database or something, and they're not as careful about the security and just forget to configure it back, and what I've seen it so many times that's to me one of the most difficult ways to be able to find, because a vulnerability scan is checking for versions and patches and things of that sort, right? So it's not checking to see if your Apache Tomcat server is configured correctly. Now, some might check that, but a good example like Apache Tomcat is if you had set the default passwords for the manager portal, right? Well, the vulnerability scanner is typically not going to pick that up unless it's pretty aggressive. It's going to check the version and say, oh, that version, does it have any vulnerabilities? Nope. Okay, you're good. So when you do a vulnerability scan, it's going to come back green and all good, right? Well, the only way to find those things is to go looking for them sometimes. And that's what I found, is just going through the environment and checking for misconfigured things. And sometimes, I would do it for the domain. Sometimes I would do it for web servers. Something specific. I would kind of just look to see, hey, is there this instance of this out there that is as a common misconfigured system or application? And sure enough, more often than not, I would find that. Because people, they're busy. We got things to do, and we're trying to get systems running, and we're trying to keep the business running, we're trying to keep, processes running. But sometimes that's because of that, they forget about locking it down or the potential risk if they don't lock it down. So, the best advice I can give to watch for that or check for that is to either check yourself occasionally, or have somebody else come in that has a different perspective, a different third-party view of it, that's not like used to those processes, used to the way things just always are, and they'll look at it differently. They'll look at it from a perspective that's not like just the normal mode. And sometimes that helps a lot, because you'll get used to seeing things and just be like, oh yeah, that's just how it is, versus somebody else looking at it with a fresh pair of eyes. And just, it's like, imagine your house, and you want to have somebody, so at my home, I will double check every now and then to make sure the windows are locked, because occasionally we'll open the window, my kids will open the window, and they forget when they're done to latch it back, right? Every night I go check the doors, make sure all the doors are locked, right? Well, that's what you're doing, is you're just making sure that your users or you or anybody, the vendors, have just locked the door, latched the window. Just checking that occasionally, because as it happens at my home occasionally, I'll go look and I'll be like, oh, here's a window here that it's been open for however long that somebody didn't latch it back. It's unlocked. That's the same concept. It's just on a bigger scale typically, and more things you have to go look for. But check the windows, check the doors, on some kind of scheduled basis, because if you don't, you forget about it, you don't have time for it, and if you don't check it, just have somebody else check it. Hire somebody. It's worth the investment. It's worth the investment of sleeping better at night, knowing that somebody's checked those things, and there's nothing glaringly obvious. And those are the things that get people compromised. They forget about changing the password, the default password. They forget about turning the firewall back on. They forget. And I've seen it many times, and I'll be surprised if you don't have it or run into it in your own experience. So that's it for today. Just, check the windows, check the doors, have somebody check them for you if you have to, but keep up at it, keep at it, and it will make a difference. It doesn't cost anything. Unless you hire somebody, it doesn't cost anything. That's the other thing. We get caught up in all the expensive things that can help us do these things. I'm telling you, I haven't seen anything out there, a tool that is all encompassing, that you could go buy right now that will do all this for you. Maybe if you have a small enough environment and it's specific enough, but I haven't seen it. So it just takes a little bit of work, but it's worth it in the end, because it keeps you and your business and your family safe. So thanks for watching. I hope this is useful. I hope you heed it and take advantage of it. And thanks again.